He is one of mine and Faiz's best friends. Him and I grew up together, same high school, knew each other since we're probably about 10 years old. Same high school, 8 to 12. He played shooting guard, very good shooting guard because he had a fantastic point guard to be able to dish the ball. Navigated our way through high school, hung out throughout our 20s, 30s, 40s. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's one of the best real estate minds that you're probably ever going to meet. He is the president of YPO in Atlanta. He serves as the chairman of the Aga Khan Foundation. He sits on the real estate board for Forbes, and he's written a book that's been published by Forbes where he's a best-selling author. Above and beyond that, once again, he's one of our best friends. Please give me a huge round of applause to welcome Mr. Ali Jamal.
How's everyone doing?
Great.
I see a lot of great leaders. Obviously, I haven't got a chance to meet any of you, but I've heard a lot about you through Ray, in the short term and all over the years, and really a little bit of background. When Ray was first starting the company, obviously we would talk all the time, and this is actually before he first started. I mean, he was going door to door on the grind, just kind of getting into business. And as I look around today at what he has grown and an amazing company that he's put together with the rest of the team, Fayez, myself, and everyone else, I'm just, again, flabbergasted. I really, really appreciate the level of dedication and hard work he put in to creating what he has here. So, Ray, thank you. You guys, you've done great, and I'm sure all the leaders in this room, really appreciate all the leadership that you've given them over the years. So. Let's try the first one here. So what manually do it? But I'll start off with just a little bit of background on myself and kind of just, my relationship with Ray, kind of just in general, how I kind of got into being an entrepreneur, specifically in kind of the real estate sector. So a little bit of way background is my parents were refugees from East Africa in the 1970s. Some of you might be aware of kind of what happened, but my parents lived in Uganda, crazy dictator by the name of Idi Amin came into power, and he said, to everyone that was a non-native at the time, look, you have, essentially 48 days to get out of the country, and for those of you who don't get out of the country, you're going to be in some trouble. And so my parents ended up coming to Canada as refugees, and really, I have conversations with my mother sometimes, and she's like, don't be mad at Idi Amin. You should be thanking him every day of your life, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have established what we've been able to establish, and I wouldn't have been able to end up here in Canada where we've had so many amazing opportunities. And so, that was foundationally having parents that were refugees has taught me a lot, in terms of prudence, in terms of being frugal, and, just being entrepreneurial in everything that you do. So when my mother first came here, she came as, she obviously, her qualifications back in East Africa wasn't very relevant here. And so she had to work an administrative job. She did that for a few years, but while she was working on a minimum wage salary, she started to purchase real estate at a very small level. So just save up, $10,000. Properties were much cheaper back then in Vancouver, as I'm sure you guys are aware. Save up $10,000 or $15,000, buy a home. Save another 10 or 15, buy a home. And so, my parents divorced at an early age, and this is what I saw and it gave me a real sense of inspiration of what could be accomplished even when you don't have a ton of means. And so, as we grew up, we saw a lot of this hard work and this work ethic go in that we could emulate. And so, that kind of takes me to, as time went on, I was kind of working and getting into the corporate side of things, and I started to invest in real estate on the side. So again, just kind of small things, buying condos, buying homes, doing these kind of small rentals and things of that nature. And that kind of helped me, eventually start building a portfolio and do bigger, better things. But how it all really started with my first place was I wanted to purchase, I was about 19 years old and I wanted to purchase a Honda Civic Si. So, Ray had this really cool Presidio. He was picking up all the chicks, having a great time. Here I was, definitely not in the same league in that category. And I was like, you know what, if I just had this Honda Civic Si, maybe I could get some more attention. And so I made a deal with my mom when I was 17. She's like, look, if you spend the next 2 years and save $20,000, I'm going to take you down to a dealership and I'm going to sign off on that Honda Civic Si for you. So I was like, holy shit. So that's fantastic. So I did it. I was working some odd jobs while going to college, put together the $20,000 over the course of that 2 years. So it's my 19th birthday. I'm super excited. I go knock on my mom's door. And she comes out and I say, Mom, let's go down to the dealership. We talked about this. You said that if I save this $20,000, we were going to go down to the dealership and buy this Honda Civic Si. My mom, being the hard-nosed refugee that she was, looks at me for a couple of seconds, says, son, you're going to be one of the stupidest people I've ever met in my life. There is no way that I'm going to let you take that $20,000 and throw it into an asset that's going to depreciate the second you take it off the lot. What we're actually going to do is we're going to go down to downtown, because I've been planning this. There's a condo for sale in downtown Vancouver. It's going for sale for about $170,000. You're going to take that $20,000 and put it down as a down payment, and you're going to, you're going to start getting into the game of real estate investing. This was not something that I was really interested in hearing. So I was trying to negotiate with her. I'm like, look, can I at least live in the condo in downtown? She's like, hell no, that's not happening. There's a bedroom downstairs that you're going to continue to live in. I have a Dodge Colt you're going to continue to drive, and you're going to rent out that condo and essentially take that rent money and pay down your mortgage over time. And so that's essentially how I ended up buying my first place. So full circle moment, the home that she forced me to purchase, or the condo she first forced me to purchase, I actually still own today. We bought it for $170,000 back then. It's worth over $2 million. So I always tell people that if it wasn't for her, I would be not a real estate entrepreneur, probably driving around a rusted out Honda Civic Si. So, this is the power of the mentorship, right? And the people in our lives who can really make an impact. And I'm sure each of you have those individuals who can really give you that type of advice when you need it to make those right decisions. Some of you might already be in the real estate investing space or doing your own various entrepreneurial kind of ventures over and above, working here, or even this in a certain way is being an entrepreneur working within this organization. And so these are kind of the opportunities that we can take and really leverage, with the people in our lives. And so over the years, after I bought that condo, I continued to work corporate jobs, investing in real estate on the side. I started, to kind of see the value, and of course, Vancouver's real estate prices, as you guys know, started to go crazy. So during that time, I was able to take out equity and purchase more properties and kind of grow a small portfolio here. And I really wanted to do my own thing. I was kind of at a place where I wanted to kind of be able to focus on my passion, which was real estate investing at the time, but not have to worry about my bills and not have to worry about the money side of things. So I needed to do something big, because there was no way that my current real estate investments were going to make up the income that I was making on the corporate jobs. And so I was speaking to my accountant in 2011, and she was like, look, Ali, there are some great opportunities in the US right now. And what you're buying a condo for in downtown Vancouver, you could probably buy 100-unit apartment building or a exterior corridor hotel in some cities in the US. You should really look at some of those markets and try to take advantage of that. So I thought about it and I said, look, this sounds really interesting, but I had a hard time correlating it because if you're from Vancouver, you know real estate prices are crazy. I couldn't see how you could acquire a 100-unit building for less than what we were buying condos for here. But she was like, look, meet one of my brokers out there in Atlanta, and he can kind of show you some properties out there and some opportunities. So to make a long story short, within the span of a couple of days, I set up a meeting with a broker in Atlanta. We walked this property in an area called Roswell, it's kind of a metro area of Atlanta, and we found this decent property that in Vancouver would probably be going for about $25 million, which was going for about $1 million here in Atlanta. And so, now I have to figure out, because I could definitely automatically see that this was a business opportunity. I could figure out now how would I capitalize this opportunity? How would I raise the funds? Because I didn't have $1 million cash to purchase an asset like that. And so I started, as you guys are, I'm sure very aware of, I needed to start, getting my sales hat on. I needed to start figuring out how would I raise this capital. And so the first people I talked to was, I guess my mom. Hey, Mom, I got a great idea. There's this great opportunity. Would you be willing to invest in it? I'll be the sweat equity. Talk to other family members. Talk to other people that I knew who'd be willing to put in the capital for the investment. And so, within a really about 3-week period, I needed to raise about $1 million to acquire this asset because there was other people looking to kind of bid on it. And so, really, going back to the sales side of things for all of us, we're selling all the time, as you guys know. Sales is a fundamental skill. And I am so glad that I learned sales at a very early stage in my career because I was able to utilize that, and I'm continuing to utilize that in all aspects of my business at all times. And it definitely came into play during this kind of pivotal moment in my real estate investment journey. And so within that 3-week period, I was able to raise the capital. We acquired the hotel. I was a sweat equity. I left my corporate job and decided that I would go and live in Atlanta. But not only did I live in Atlanta, I decided to move into the hotel. So I lived in the hotel for approximately 2 years, learning the business, trying to get it off the ground. And to give you a little bit of kind of background on what type of assets that we acquire, as you can see, exterior corridor, kind of older assets. And our business model is to essentially provide affordable accommodations, right? So we're looking at customers who are looking for units for $200 to $300 a week, $800 a month kind of thing. So I was definitely out of my environment, obviously out of Vancouver. Now I'm living in an exterior corridor hotel, not taking much of a salary. Was there for 2 years working probably 12 to 13 hours a day on the front desk and managing the various aspects of the operation and trying to learn the business. And again, the beautiful thing with that was it taught me so much from the ground level. It taught me, not only, the work ethic aspect of it, but it also taught me the day-to-day operations that I needed as I decided to kind of scale the business. And so what was really good out of our first location was, not only the learning aspect of it, but we had some success because the business model worked. We had 70 to 80% occupancy at the hotel fairly quickly. We started to cash flow the business. And as we cash flowed the business, what happened was my investors got happy because they started seeing returns pretty quickly. And when investors get happy, what do they want to do? They want to reinvest and help you scale the business. And so, that taught me another very valuable lesson. Keep your investors happy. Because as you keep your investors happy, they're going to help you scale. So take care of your investors, take care of your customers, and they're going to help take care of you as you grow your business. And so a really interesting thing happened during this time. I was not going into this by any means from an altruistic perspective. So I wasn't looking to get into this business to serve people on the affordable housing side of things, to be completely honest. I was looking to make a profit. I was looking to go there, maybe, get a business up and running and hopefully come back to Vancouver. But What was interesting as I was working in these at the first location, I got to really learn about the customer base. And the power of knowing your customer base is just amazing, because it can really help shape the way that you are going to continue to grow your business. And so, quick story I'll kind of tell you about with regards to one of our customers. As I was working, the front desk at our first location, I had this customer come in who had been there for a few months, and she came in and she was, she was really upset. She had just lost her job, and she didn't have a way to pay for her room for the next week. So, I kind of knew that she was not really disciplined. She had a child and a husband that was in the room as well, but she was kind of doing her own thing a lot of the time aside from work and not really focused on trying to find another job. So I was like, look, I can offer you a potential job with the hotel, but I really need to know that you're serious about working for me. And at this time, I just acquired another hotel across the city. So I was like, if you're serious, wake up tomorrow at 7 a.m., take the bus to our other hotel across the city, and make sure you're there on time and show me that this is something that you are really wanting to do. To my surprise, I was not expecting this. She did it. And that was the beginning of her employment with our organization. Her name was Barbara Connor. She unfortunately passed away just last year, but she, over time, had built herself into a general manager at one of our locations as we grew the business. And so, what that eventually taught me was that we have a huge customer base that we can put in place leadership positions within the business as we're growing it. And as of today, 20% of our leadership teams, believe it or not, are one-time customers of the hotels. So this is a really interesting thing. It's not something that I initially wanted to do. It wasn't something that I was altruistically kind of looking to do, but as we kind of started to grow over time, this is what type of happened. And so looking for those opportunities where, we can be of service over and above, just providing that job, but giving people a chance to really showcase what they can do as a leader. And I've seen so many leaders that have done that over time, is really, really, key to growing an organization in a way that's going to be sustainable. And so, Barbara's story is something that I'm very proud of, because, it really showcases that, as leaders, we can have a strong impact on those that we work with from a generational perspective. And I know that we were able to, once she started getting into leadership positions in our organization, she got out of the hotel, obviously. She got her own house. Her daughter got into a better school, and there was a domino effect. Now, you times that by 20%, we have 250 employees now. 20% of our employees being one-time, customers of the hotel. There's that ripple effect that we're having that, again, we were not expecting to have, but it's just fantastic to see. And so over time, as we kind of continue to grow the business, we decided to kind of scale into different opportunities. And so we started to scale the hotel business. It went fairly well. We had scaled up to today we have about 18 locations across the country, but we wanted to start kind of looking at other opportunities. And a lot of people were coming to me saying, Ali, you have all of these kind of hotels focused on the affordable housing segment. Why don't you sell a couple and go to that higher segment? Why don't you get a Hilton? Why don't you do something else that's going to be a little bit, higher quality and maybe a higher level type of asset? And to me, it didn't make sense from a few perspectives. Number one, we had something that was working, right? So why fix something that's not broken? Why not continue to scale it? That's the first thing that came to my mind. The other thing was, he was right. There was an opportunity to look at a different customer segment, but we didn't have to attack that customer segment through hotels. We could buy higher end vacation rentals and still attract that customer segment. Take that same customer that would have stayed at the Hilton, but put them into a vacation rental that we acquired instead. And that way we weren't diluting our hotel brand. And so we started to kind of scale down on our vacation rental business. And over time, we're able to kind of grow a portfolio of vacation rentals. And so we are now in that higher end segment, but we're in it in a different way. So, I always tell people never be afraid to pivot. Because as long as your pivots can somehow still be attached to your core business, there's always going to be that opportunity. So, different customers are always there for the taking. We just have to make sure our product mix fits them. And so this was an opportunity for us to get that higher level customer, but at the same time, we're able to get into a different type of business that was very low risk, a lot less risky than, let's say, a high-end hotel, and at a much lower price point and a much lower barrier of entry than we would have to kind of acquire a $20 million or $30 million hotel. So as we've grown the kind of vacation rental portfolio, really what I've learned is the ability to acquire a different type of customer with a different type of product while still maximizing our returns as much as possible. The other thing that kind of I've learned as we've scaled the business over time is not to be too concerned about geographies. And I know that your guys' business is doing that as well, where you're expanding in different regions of North America, and who knows, maybe even the world soon. And we really found that was important for our business. And so, as I was acquiring properties in Atlanta, similar thing happened in Atlanta, unfortunately, that happened here in Vancouver, where property prices started to climb significantly. And so the hotels that I was buying for $1 million in 2011 were going for $8 or $9 million by 2017. Atlanta just exploded for various reasons. And so I was kind of priced out of that local market because I didn't want to acquire deals at that high of a price point or that high of a barrier of entry. And so I wanted to kind of look at different opportunities. And so I was online one night, just kind of looking through deals across the country, and I find a 100-unit hotel in Minot, North Dakota, in the middle of nowhere, going for $450,000. Property looked like it was in great condition. This is the property. I haven't put internal pictures, but the property was in great condition. So I called the broker. I'm like, why the hell is this thing going for $450,000? It makes no sense. And he's like, well, number one, it's Minot, North Dakota. We have a population of like 80,000 people here, so this is not a huge population in that. Number two, there was a lot of overbuilding a few years ago because of the oil sector that had come in here quite significantly. They built up a lot of hotels. They were doing really well. And, when the price of oil dipped, workers left, hotels were left empty. So this guy, he made his money, but at this point, he just wants to get rid of the asset. So here I was doing business in North Dakota and didn't know anything about the region. It was really cold, colder than a lot of parts of Canada. But went out there and acquired this building. It was an empty building when we acquired it, right? There's not many customers, only 3 or 4 customers at the time. That's the reason why we got the price point we did. And so we needed to come up with a solution on how the heck are we going to fill this thing. So I thought to myself, look, there's a whole bunch of, apartment complexes in this area. And the apartment complexes, surprisingly, their occupancy rates are through the roof. And so it's not so much that there wasn't a demand for affordable housing. The concept of affordable housing from a hotel perspective is just not in North Dakota yet. So we created this flyer, $500 special, everything included, for a month. And we sent out the flyer to every single apartment complex in the area for anyone who was potentially getting evicted or anyone who just wanted to get a discount on the rent. Because a lot of people, if they're working, they didn't care. If they got a decent room, they would make the shift. And within a 60-day period, we filled 100 of the units at $500 a pop. So let's just do the math on that. Buy a property for $450,000. You're making $50,000 gross a year on it. And we were able to manage our costs and do pretty good. So the overall context of that is, geography should not stop us when we want to grow our business and we're under the focus of business development. And B, there's hidden gems everywhere, in every customer, in every opportunity. And if we can be resourceful and just figure out a way to get to that endpoint where we can take full advantage of opportunities like that, we can take our businesses and our professional careers to the next level. And so that's, that was our first location in North Dakota. We liked it so much, we decided to expand, and now we have 4 locations across state. And so this is a quote I really like. It says, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. And I really feel that that's the motto of, you know, my life as I've kind of looked back and see some of my successes, some of my failures, and I've had a lot of those. It's, you know, the times where I maybe didn't succeed, a lot of it had to do with me not taking full responsibility for, you know, for my success. And I think as long as we can put on our shoulders every day the responsibility to succeed, like all of you guys do, I'm sure, then, you know, we'll just keep moving forward and doing great things. And so, again, I thank you guys for having me out here today and listening to a little bit of my story, my journey. Hopefully some of you can relate to it in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, thank you so much. Happy to take any questions from you guys and open it up.
When you were expanding property or business, right? Was it a gut feeling or proper research that you were doing?
I didn't catch the question.
So
Feeling
you just
or
said you bought a
research
hotel in
here.
not a hotel where, you know, there were hardly any population.
Yeah.
You were doing a proper research or just a gut feeling to just buy it?
It was proper research to a certain extent. So I think, you know, all of us have heard the term, you know, paralysis by analysis. That's so we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to overanalyze something where we don't take action, right? We also don't want to take stupid decisions. So there's always a delta between that, right? And so what I did in that specific instance is I researched the area. I did some research before I got in there in terms of what the occupancy rates of different types of real estate in the area was. So if everything in the area was totally empty, it probably doesn't make, even at 450, doesn't make sense to get in there, right? So you want to do a general framework, but you know, a lot of this is experience. When you're doing something enough, it's kind of, there's a term, muscle memory, right? And so you start building muscle memory around real estate investing or around anything that you're doing, whether it's sales or business development, you kind of get a feel. So a little bit of it was gut, but there is some research. You want to kind of do some data analysis. So it's a bit of a combination of both, if that makes sense.
What are some criteria that you look for when deciding whether something is truly a good investment or not? What are some of those key factors for you?
So I think it's always subjective to what your business model is, right? So what is important to me when I want to acquire a property or acquire a business or whatever it might be could be very different than someone else depending on the type of business they're in. For me, I'm a value investor, right? So I'm looking to get, if it's just to give a context of hotels, I'm looking to get as many rooms as possible at the lowest price possible, to keep it simple, right? So if I get a lot of rooms for a low price in a market that's hopefully growing, then I'm very excited about that market, right? So right now, a market like Oklahoma is exciting to me, right? Because it's growing, the rental demand there is growing, but I can still buy property there very cheap. And so when you see those kind of combinations, that ingredient is really, really attractive for a strong real estate investment.
How are your quality hotels different than other markets? What do you do differently to make it stand out?
So a few different things. I think from specific to my business and as an owner-operator, one thing I've done is cut out the middleman, right? So I started my own franchise. And so I could have, for example, just acquired a travel lodge, but now I'm paying 20% of my gross income to a company that, in my opinion, is not going to generate too much more traffic than I can, because at the end of the day, affordable accommodation is affordable accommodation, right? Like that customer who's going to the travel lodge, I'm not bought into the fact that he's going to the travel lodge because he's loyal to travel lodge. I think he's just like, that's the cheapest place in the area right now. I only have $50 in my pocket, I'm going there, right? That's the guy I'm after. And so my thought process was, if I'm after that guy, then why the heck am I going to pay 20%? I'm just going to create my own thing and bring it in. So that's very subjective to myself, but that's, you know, the main reason I would say that there's some level of difference. From a service perspective, and the kind of services that we provide, I would say there's really not that much difference, to be honest. I'd say, you know, our goal is to provide a room at an affordable price point that's hopefully clean, and, you know, that people can stay in on a weekly basis. You know, our goal is to try and capture that customer for a long period of time. You know, death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? So we want to fill as many units as possible and keep those units filled for the longest period possible. Other hotels are going to have a different strategy. Their thought process is, I really don't want my hotel fully booked because there's going to be some wear and tear on the asset. I would rather get as much per night as possible on 50 rooms. And so it's just a different, you know, it's a different business model, and both models work. But if you're going to go the route of acquiring assets and essentially providing affordable housing, you just got to make sure you have high occupancy. Because even if you buy an asset cheap and it's not filled, you're going to be obviously in a challenging situation. Luckily enough, I think affordable housing is enough of a challenge across the country and across probably the continent, where if that's the business unit, you're probably going to do fairly decent, at least from my experience. Does that answer your question?
The Economy Hotel brand, do you have goals to make it like Travelodge or Holiday Inn as large?
Yes, I think it's definitely something that is something we can continue to scale for sure, and be more aggressive in our scaling going into the next 5 to 10 years. The first few years, I think and not to get too far into the finance aspect of it, but the focus was, you know, essentially save money, acquire, save money, acquire. We weren't huge on leveraging assets and things of that nature. As time has gone on, we've kind of developed more creative ways to acquire deals, either with bringing in investors or financing. And I think now that we've kind of become a little bit more sophisticated on that front, now we're in the position to really scale the business, either through private equity, either through bringing on more investors. There's a few different kind of realms that we can take, but yes, I think there's definitely the opportunity that I can scale that business.
You brought up financing. When you bought that $450,000 hotel, how did you finance?
Cash. Straight cash.
You asked from the owner, or you just gave him the $450,000, or did the owner give you a loan at 0%?
No. Yeah, that is a strategy we do sometimes, the owner finance, but on that specific deal, it was just straight cash. And the reason being is it was $450,000. So for me to raise the capital from a couple of people and myself was fairly easy. And they didn't want to take on debt on such a small asset. And really, the debt would have hurt our numbers. It probably wouldn't have helped us too much. And so, we figured that because the occupancy rates in the buildings close by were fairly high, we could fill our units, at least 75% of them. And if we could do that, the return was going to be pretty good.
Faced with adversity, like take COVID for example, what was your approach to recovering from that financially and mentally?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think it's somewhat subjective to the business because different businesses were hit in different ways. My business did really well during COVID, and because for all the factors that you could probably imagine, right? Because you have a transient population, people probably getting kicked out of apartment complexes, going through challenging situations with where they were living from a steady perspective, needing some level of affordable housing just to get back on their feet until the pandemic was over. And so we saw a huge influx of business because of that. Now, my other divisions, like the vacation rental division, or even some of our commercial divisions, definitely we had a receding occupancy rates. And so that kind of goes back to kind of different businesses we hit different ways. But that also goes to the point of diversification. It's so important to be diversified because COVID really taught me that, right? Where my hotel business was firing on all cylinders, vacation rental business definitely lost about 60% of its occupancy, during that time. And so, we were able to kind of balance out those kind of numbers. So diversification is so important, and I think COVID really underlined that for a lot of businesses.
Ali, would you mind sharing with the team, I guess, the true environment you were living in when you moved over to Atlanta to start off, as well as some of your tougher days you faced when you were out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, going from Vancouver to Atlanta in and itself is the cities are very different, right? For many reasons, it's a culture shock in many ways. And the hotel that we acquired, I mentioned, was kind of, you're talking a lower end kind of exterior corridor asset, and you're living with kind of, individuals that are going through some economic challenges and some challenges in life. And you're so, you're in an environment where you're surrounded by people going through challenges, and you gotta figure a way to try to bring solace to their challenges every day, while at the same time trying to figure out how I'm going to get acclimated myself to this environment. So it's a lot of different things being thrown at you in a very short amount of time. And don't forget, the biggest part of this is, what the big cloud over your head is, my investors need to return, right? I'm the sweat equity in this deal. I'm the guy who they, for whatever reason, bet on. I don't know why they did, because I had no real hotel experience. And so in the back of my mind, I'm kind of struggling with some of those internal confidence issues, right? Am I going to be able to make this work? And if I don't make this work, I'm going to end up going back to Vancouver, losing everyone's money, feeling like a failure. And obviously, none of us want to be in that kind of position. And so, it's a perfect storm of a lot of different challenges hitting you at one time. And so, I always say, those type of experiences, obviously, while we're going through them, we all know this is not fun. I'm sure all of us in this room have been through those kind of cycles in our life. But I think if we all look back and say, what was the time frame, or what was the cycle in our life that made us grow, what made us stronger, those are the times, right? And so I am so thankful for going through some of those struggles where, we had staffing shortages on the staff. We had housekeepers not show up. I'm the housekeeper. I'm the maintenance person, and I'm definitely not a good one by any means, but you have to make it work, right? If the end goal and your vision is bigger than just yourself, you have to make it work. And so, that's what I learned during that time. And I know it sounds like very simplified advice, because I used to get this kind of stuff from people, and I was like, but it's true. You just gotta put yourself to the grindstone sometime and come out on that other end. And there's no, beautiful way to say it. It's just going through some of those challenges and making the best of them. I'll add one other thing is, I just kind of shared some of the anguish I had regarding the investors and trying to figure out whether I was going to be able to make it work. And again, this is going to kind of sound hokey, but having a positive mind frame, right? Reframing the situation while you're in the situation to make it more bearable for you, right? So telling yourself when you're going through that, hey, you know what? Okay, this is a challenge right now, but on the other end of this, there can be some really great opportunities. I said that a lot to myself. It actually happened. And so, and that's happened numerous times in my life where I just had to reframe how I saw the situation that I was in. And that small adjustment can totally change the course of how you view the situation, how you interact in that situation, and how you come out of that situation.
Actually, go to Aman first.
Yeah. So as for real estate here, they say location, location, location. That's how important location is. You said geography shouldn't stop you from expanding. So is that commercial versus residential difference? Or is it Canada versus US difference?
Yeah. So, I would say location does matter. It's subjective to the type of business. And so, would I have bought a single-family residential home in Minot, North Dakota? Hell no, right? That would have just been a dumb decision because the maximum rent I would get on the asset wouldn't even be worth the purchase price. Because I acquired a hotel, and going back to your question on the commercial side, because I acquired a hotel, but it's not only because I acquired a hotel, it's the type of hotel. So it's like you have to dig a little bit, even go a little bit deeper and say the hotel in that space has to be an affordable type of hotel asset. Because if you get too general, the risk is if you're like hotel in general and just acquire, for example, a Holiday Inn or something that's higher end, that hotel might not be what the market needs, right? So yes, location is important, but there's a lot of nuance to it. That's what I always tell investors is like, you always hear that location thing, right? And that's such a simplified version of what reality is because there's so much more nuance with each of this. Location, yes, but what type of asset? Single family, commercial, residential? Is it triple net? Is it affordable housing? Is it high-end housing? All these questions need to be answered before we can really come up with a solution to whether or not something is a good investment, in my opinion.
Thank you.
So a lot of Vancouverites will purchase properties here with the reason being is that they're counting on equity. They're counting on this property to increase in value. Would you say your properties increased in value or did the business become better?
I think a combination of both, and it's depending on geography. So in Atlanta, it was definitely a combination of both. Because we acquired a building that was empty, we got it up to a couple $1 million in sales, so of course the building is more valuable now. But the area itself, Atlanta, just exploded, right? And I didn't know that it would explode. I had no idea it was going to explode. It just kind of exploded over time. And really, Atlanta has become a hub for a lot of culture now in the U.S., and it's kind of just it's really continuing to grow. Other markets, like going back to North Dakota, no, it's definitely not the market at all. It's definitely just the fact that we took an empty building and we made it a little bit more conducive to generating sales. That being said, what's interesting in a market like North Dakota, and this goes into kind of some of your sales development research and kind of as we're entering markets is, now with the price of oil, because North Dakota is a market where it's very reliant on agriculture and natural resources and the price of oil. And so as the price of oil goes up, property valuations go up because occupancy goes up because the workers come in. And so there's a lot of variations there from that perspective, but to keep it simple, a market like, like a Midwest market, I think is going to be more relative to the business that you create within that building versus a more populated market like Atlanta, Chicago, Vancouver, whatever it might be, where, it's going to appreciate based on just people wanting to live there. And I'll also add, I think in general with regards to Vancouver, my personal thoughts, because I get asked this all the time about kind of property prices here and whether people should invest, should we invest now or whatever else. My personal take on it is absolute, because I think we have a city here that's like the Switzerland of North America. I mean, it's a gorgeous city that people want to live in, and I think in a 10-year, 20-year cycle, your valuation of real estate is always going to go up. That's not great news for people who are not in the real estate market yet and want to get into it. I always tell people, going back to the geography thing that we talked about, look at other markets. It's not the answer that you want probably, but there are other markets where you can make money and bring it back to Vancouver, right? And sometimes you got to do that. That's going back to the pivot, right? Sometimes you got to go to the U.S. or sometimes you got to go to Manitoba or Calgary. And I know a lot of businesses that do that and have done that really well. I think there was someone back there. Yeah.
Basically, I'm actually getting in some tech data in the market, where it's in real estate, so I'm actually and going back there with the land that I have there, I'm actually considering the same thing. Here's the thing. It's very petrifying trying to get information to understand that type of market, because everybody has different input on how it should be. So my question is, did you have a manager who got all this information? list that just made sense?
So a few things. I would say join organizations. So as Ray said, I chair a couple of groups, YPO. I've joined different boards related to real estate investing. And even before I started getting into those roles, even here locally, I used to go to just kind of the real estate meetups. So I think that builds you into a network, right? Whatever our business passion is, getting around people who are doing similar things is going to help develop new ideas, right? That just in that. So I would say going to real estate meetups, things like that. I'd say number 2, reading. Read anything and everything you can on real estate investing in general. I think that's really helpful. And I would say joining, again, real estate boards and things of that nature, and trying to get positions on there where you get responsibility. Because what will happen is you become kind of a resource for other people, and it starts feeding into the things that you need as well as an investor or a business person.
So, what I respect a lot about, your story here is that you've always really stuck to the basics, and stuck to what's really worked in terms of the formula that you created from the get-go. You talked about pivoting, which is great, and that growth has come from that. Speaking to the hiring, you talked about 20% of your current staff were customers. How has hiring changed, and maybe even how you marketed in the past when you roll out flyers around communities? Have you continued to do that? And do you find that even your hiring provides you with things like referrals and people that come through these doors that just pure word of mouth, or how has it changed and evolved?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say we've definitely seen variables in our HR and recruitment over time. As coming out of the pandemic, we had a lot of challenges on hiring because, for those of you who don't know, the government gave a lot of checks to a lot of people during that time, and a lot of people in the U.S. decided not to come back to work for a long period of time, including some of our employees, and so we're in a bit of a challenge. And I think in those environments, what we decided to do was get innovative and get resourceful on how we could bring people in. On the resourceful side, we had to kind of double up positions to a certain extent, right? So as an example, we would have a GM and an AGM in all locations. We would combine the positions and say the GM is going to run both positions, and just say you guys can make it work. Our corporate positions, we again doubled up. So that was kind of the resourceful aspect of it, of just kind of, since we didn't have staff, we wanted to hire, we just, people weren't applying. And so we just started to double up from a certain perspective. In terms of people that we did want to get, and that we did want to kind of more aggressively go after, we started to utilize social media, so LinkedIn, especially for kind of corporate level jobs and things of that nature, and just reaching out to numerous people. And the saying that we have within our management company and our team is like, always be hiring, always be recruiting, right? And so when any of my managers are going out there, I try to get it into their mind, like, always be looking for good people. When you're going to the local McDonald's, or when you're going to, the TJ Maxx, or wherever you're going to your day, where you're going to interact with potential people who would be great for our company, get their phone number. Let's figure a way to potentially bring them into our organization if you feel like they're going to have an impact. And the interesting thing that's done for our company is it gave those individuals who brought those individuals in a sense of ownership and a sense of being a part of that individual's success as they ended up getting hired and growing within the company. All right, thank you everyone. Appreciate it.
Question for you. Yeah. When you left in 2011, what were your assets under management?
Good question. So my assets under management at that time, probably about a couple million.
What are they today?
Just over 85. So we've had some nice growth since that time. Thank you, guys. Again, very much proud of what you guys have done here, proud of what Ray Fayez and the rest of your guys' leadership team has done. You guys inspire me in terms of a lot of what you guys have accomplished, and I really look forward to connecting with each of you at some point. Thank you.